And the real side dreams continue to give us verifications and validations, to provide answers to that which we ponder, and unveil the deceptions, snares and deceits of individuals who, on the surface of the passing dream, appear very laudable, but in fact are not. As I said earlier, I rarely ask questions before I slip into the real side, as I sing the New You song. I generally let life and the guides share and demonstrate what they will, for often the questions we may have stem from the confused little personal self, as it tries to over-analyze, literalize, and fit what is experienced into the very limited and awareness-lacking perspective of what it has come to know, and decide what it thinks life is. For a point may come where questions are no longer needed to be asked, beyond the literal knowledge base that is needed as a foundation, and through the connection to the real awareness, it becomes then a seeing and a being state. We can be assured that everything is available in every new moment. Everything we need is right here and now. So what we can draw from this true reality depends on the extent that we can perceive it, and any questions, concerns, and ponderings beyond that are directly proportionate to the degree to which we are not connected to our real awareness. The personal, literal self will then seek to add ideas, questions, and queries onto what is pure and perfect, even though, absent of the personal self or one's focus on it, everything would be there in its entirety. And so, what would be needed in regards to additional information? This is then what prevents us from being in the new nowness of every new moment, and indeed standing real with the guides and the is, the extent to which we layer filters over it with our literal personal mind and emotions. As I was saying, even though I may not ask specific questions before sleep generally, often that which I have experienced on the physical, on the real side previously, or what I have written in prior radio shows or learned from various Skype sources, will emerge in some shape or form on the real side, by way of validation. This is happening fairly frequently these last several weeks, and I suspect it always has, but I was not making the correlation between the real side experiences and that which I had encountered, maybe weeks earlier, on the physical. I had written about how, depending on what we decide and choose as the attitudes we wish to cling on to or cultivate, dictates the species we may find ourselves in future lifetimes. That if our decided upon attitudes are along the lines and in alignment with a particular species more so than the species we currently are in, then we may well find ourselves a member of that species somewhere down the line, As we have learned, we can become reptilian due to our decisions. If what we do adversely affects individuals in regards to restricting them and robbing them of the opportunity to become more aware by deception, etc., as in Marjorie Clemp and other individuals who believe they are providing a benefit, but are setting people up for taplining and unconscious future lifetimes. And this is borne out and witnessed on the real side, as the reptilians take them away. So it is apparent that from an awareness potentiality standpoint, a reptilian is a far less advantageous a species to find one's self in. If by our ill deeds and deceptive activities we find ourselves becoming one, the reptilians' created collective consciousness is far more oppressive and limiting for a reptilian to reach for their awareness then. Not impossible, however, but with their species being telepathic, far harder to secretly sing the new you and share it without the risk of discovery, and one would assume dire consequences. And so I would have a recent real-side dream demonstration, one of a confirmational variety, that validated how being a reptilian was far more limiting than being a human in regards to the potential of becoming more aware. If one finds themselves as a reptilian, clearly the qualities, created literal selves, and decided upon attitudes, individually and collectively, are of such a nature as to be far more restricting and a stronger obscuring barrier between the personal self and the real self. The real self, the guides and life, will have a far harder time breaking through to a reptilian's personal self than a human's, we can presume. In my dream this was demonstrated. I was with a group, as I invariably am on my real side escapades. We had donned battle armour, and our objective was to reach a location by fighting through hordes of individuals and creatures that stood in oppositional defiance to our target. My group were all human, but I found myself as a reptilian. Often we will have dreams where we do assume various forms and adopt all manner of vehicles of myriad species, as this allows us to better be objective, to perceive from the position of other species. This allows comparisons, and the experience of wearing the vehicles and attitudes and personal literal overcoats of a multitude of species, that we better see how everything from what we are to what we have as personality, mind or emotion is just something we have added on top of what is pure and real. We see what the true reality is by experiencing the vast array of everything that it is not, by having all these various viewpoints. In this case, the dream, I feel, was confirmation of the limited qualities of a reptilian in regards to becoming more aware in comparison with his human associates. Because what transpired was this: I would fall to the onslaught of the attackers, but every other member of the group all of which were human, would proceed on, pushing further and ultimately succeeding. The goal we sought was clearly attainment of a real position with the ears, recognition of it, and escape from creation. Creation demonstrated by the battle. Not necessarily battling others, although we do have to deal with the choices of others, the controllers who seek to suppress and hinder us, etc., but also the battle with the personal self. We have to work through our personal selves, and it seems if one finds themselves as a reptilian, their personal self is far harder to get through generally than a human's. And if a reptilian made inroads in getting through themselves, they'd likely take a step and position themselves perhaps in a species where the battle with the personal self wasn't as difficult, still having to be dealt with, but more manageable. So even though the controllers think they are having such fun in their minds, they are compounding their cause and effect karma, and positioning themselves in future lifetimes in forms and with species that will further hamper their ability to connect with their real awareness, to the extent they can end up as swamp creatures, taking severe backward steps, which at some point or another they must work through again, and painstakingly position themselves better to have even a glimpse at their real awareness. Or they may wind up in the phantom zone, and effectively start all over again, as though they had only just emerged from the ears all those millions of lifetimes ago, and what a waste of all that experience.